Hello once again, everyone. My name is Ken Jobst, and we're here with the Generations Bible Study. We're taking a close look at the book of Proverbs, and our study is entitled Proverbs, Mastering the Art of the Possible. And this week we've come to Proverbs chapters 10 and 11, and chapters 10 and 11 introduce the third major collection in the book of Proverbs. There's a preamble and a prologue, and finally in chapter 10, we come to what we are most familiar with in terms of Proverbs, those short sayings that carry such tremendous wisdom. So in the preamble, we just get set up. That's a little collection that sets us up for the entire book of Proverbs. The prologue, we have stories that are oriented around the notion of creating motivation to pursue wisdom. And now we come to chapter 10, verse 1, and we see that here is the wisdom. Here are the actual gold nuggets that are here for our edification and for wisdom for the prince, for the one who is going to be ruling. Now, this Proverbs chapter 10, verse 1 opens with the title, The Proverbs of Solomon. So right here is where this remarkable third collection begins, third of 7 collections, and once again identified as Proverbs of Solomon. Now watch this. In the Hebrew language, the numerical value of the name Solomon, remember you take the letters of the name and you count in the alphabet, how deep in the alphabet is the letter S and O and L, M, O, Solomon. So his name in the Hebrew alphabet has a numerical value of 375. So the numerical value of Solomon's name is 375. And watch, in this section of the book of Proverbs, there are 375 Proverbs of Solomon. I think that's great. Anyway, just so you know, I want to set your heart at ease. I'm not going to read all 375. We're both glad about that. But what I am going to do, I'm going to pick and choose. I'm going to land on, let's say, a dozen. Going to land on a dozen particular Proverbs out of chapters 10 and 11. Before I get to those Proverbs, though, I do want to point out, once again, that the book of Proverbs constitutes a work of Hebrew poetry. And the key thing to remember about Hebrew poetry is the discipline, the expression of parallelism. So Hebrew poetry doesn't have rhyme. You're not trying to rhyme things as a Hebrew poet, but you are trying to establish certain parallels. So they're like little couplets. And there's different varieties of parallelism. There's parallelism which is synonymous. So blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah means, okay, these things are parallel. These two tracks run together. So that's parallel, let me say synonymous parallelism. Synonymous parallelism. But there's also what's called contrasting parallelism, which says blah, 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 but blah, blah, blah. So the synonyms are, synonym parallelism is indicated by use of the word and, this and that, so you got those parallels. But contrasting parallelism is signified by the use of the word but. You got this? But there's that, right? Okay, now, the reason I mention that is because in Proverbs chapter 10 and 11, there is an overwhelming preponderance of contrasting parallelism. As a matter of fact, almost 80% of the Proverbs that are included in these two chapters are contrasting parallels. And you can just count the number of times the word but is used. And it's like 79%, almost 8 out of 10 of these proverbs are in that form. So what's this saying? This is telling us that the contrast is a very important expression of wisdom. To be able to see this is valuable, but this is not. This is to be saved, this is to let go of. So those contrasts are really the vast majority of Solomon's opening Proverbs in this section. Now, by the way, there's another theme. There's a theme in chapters 10 and 11 that gets developed fairly well. It's the theme of righteousness. Like the righteous do this, but the unrighteous do that. So righteousness as a theme is mentioned over 30 times in these 2 chapters. Once again, the whole section goes from chapter 10 up to the middle of chapter 22. And we're only concerned today with chapters 10 and 11. Now, that being said, let's dive in to my dozen. Here's my dozen proverbs that we want to spend some time with today. And, you could choose a completely different dozen. And I encourage you to go ahead and dive in and study these proverbs because they are so rewarding of diligent study. But I want to offer, of the chapter 10 and 11, I'm just going to take a half dozen out of each of these chapters that we can talk about a little bit. The first of these is the first proverb, and I think this is very interesting that Solomon chose this to be the first proverb in this collection. Verse 1 says, "A wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother." Now, that's a triple contrast, right? It's contrasting 3 different things. It's the contrast between wise and foolish, the wise son, the foolish son. It's a contrast between joy and grief. And it's a contrast between father and mother. So that triple contrast really should set our antennae up that we should be looking for contrasts through this particular section. And let's talk a little bit about the wise son bringing joy to his father, but a foolish son bringing grief to his mother. That says so much. It says the possibility of wise and foolish sons, certainly, but it's of great interest to me that it's not a contrast between the wise son's impact on his father and the foolish son's impact on his father. It's the impact of the wise son on the joy of the father and the foolish son on the grief of the mother. And that's captured my imagination. Does the wise son provide a particular kind of joy that can be enjoyed to the greatest extent by the father? And maybe let me just say, father's pride in his son, right? Pride and joy. Maybe those go together in a particular way. That the father's joy is a wise son. See what I mean? Now let me continue this. But a foolish son brings grief to his mother. This proverb leads me to ask this question. Is there something about a foolish son's grief to his mother that is like, let me put it this way. The grief of all griefs to a mother is a foolish son. And maybe the pride of all prides to a father is a wise son. Is there something about the grief of a mother with respect to a foolish son maybe that is indeed, maybe it's just said best that way, that the grief of all griefs to a mother is to have a foolish son. But the pride of all prides to a father is to have a wise son. So, that says a lot to sons. It says a lot to parents. And maybe we need to delve into that deeper on another time. I'm looking now at Proverbs chapter 10, verse 7. Verse 7 says, "The name of the righteous is used in blessings, but the name of the wicked will rot." The name of the righteous is used in blessings, but the name of the wicked will rot. Now, we can see the value of this particular proverb in an honor culture. In cultures that are based upon honor, one's reputation is tremendously important. And that we do have the custom, or in Judaism certainly there is the custom of, when mentioning the name of someone who is deceased, if they have been of particular spiritual value to you, right? That it's customary to say so-and-so of blessed memory. That it is a blessing to remember the life of the righteous. It brings a blessing to the person who is remembering that person. So the name of the righteous is used in blessings. If I want to bless my child, I might invoke the name of someone who has been a blessing to me. And this is seen in, for example, in the book of Genesis, in the closing chapters of Genesis, when Jacob is blessing, when each of the tribal leaders gets their blessing, the 12 sons. Now, the name of the righteous is used in blessings, but here's the contrast, right? But the name of the wicked will rot. And that's just simply that, look, nobody will remember this wicked person, and certainly no one will use their name as a blessing. You would not want to hang that name on a child. Enough said. Let's continue in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 12. This proverb, verse 12 of chapter 10, says, "Hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers over all wrongs." So that hatred, I think it's very interesting. It's hatred stirs up conflict. Usually what we think is that we have a conflict, so we end up hating somebody. No. The proverb puts it precisely in the opposite direction. Hatred stirs up the conflict. Because we have hatred, the conflict develops. Or let me say, the conflict is stirred up. It's not that the conflict begins, but hatred stirs up a conflict. What happens when you stir the coals in a fire that's about to go out? Well, the coals glow red again, right? So hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers over all wrongs. It doesn't say it eliminates the wrong. I think that's very important for us. Love does not eliminate the wrong, but it covers over the wrong. Now, and let me say this about covering over a wrong, that the wrong needs to be seen then in the light of love. Yeah, your child scribbled on the wall with a crayon. That's a wrong. But you love the child, and you see that, and you say, we've got to teach the child not to scribble on the wall with a crayon. But by the same measure, this is indicative that, okay, the child is growing, the child is standing, the child has some sort of artistic ability maybe. But love covers over all wrongs. Wrongs look differently when viewed through a lens of love. And I think that's largely the secret to Christian success, is to be able to see things, anything, even wrongs, through the lens of love, through the lens of agape Christian love. Now, chapter 10, verse 22 is one that we may have heard in financial counseling sessions. It says, "The blessing of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil for it." Or as the King James says, "The blessing of the Lord brings wealth, and he adds no sorrow to it." Right? Which is very interesting to me, that wealth comes from the Lord. Wealth, the availability, let me put it this way, the possibility of abundance comes from an abundant God. If God was not in the business of abundance, right? And please understand this. God doesn't just bless people. God overblesses people. How many of you have been overblessed? Blessed way beyond any kind of reasonable understanding of what a blessing is. Just my cup overflows. It's not that God filled the cup, that God went crazy over blessing me, right? I testify to that. So the blessing of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil, without sorrow attached to it. God is the source of wealth. Now, you know what? You can make all kinds of money. You can have all the money stuffed in your mattress, and you can go from a twin bed to a full bed to a queen bed to a king bed to a California king bed, right? Full of all that money, and you still not be wealthy. Because God brings wealth. Wealth is designed. Wait a minute. Watch. Hold up. What if wealth is designed for your soul? Not for your bodily comfort, not for your pride, but to be able to test your soul. Where is your confidence? Where are your hopes if you've got all this money? It's very interesting. There's some exceptions, but by and large, it's pretty rare to find a devout bajillionaire. Why? Because sometimes money blinds us to our need for God. So, all that being said, chapter 10, verse 24, "What the wicked dread will overtake them. What the righteous desire will be granted." Right? Now watch. The righteous, you've heard this before, that God will grant to the righteous the desire of their heart. Well, you know what? If you're righteous, your heart should be desiring more Jesus. Make me more Christ-like. Make me more godly in what I do. Well, then, that's God's pleasure to bless the righteous in order to be more godly. But what the wicked dread will overtake them. What do the wicked dread? Getting caught, right? The wicked dread getting caught. And it may be they dread getting caught because it's going to be jail time or impact on the reputation or one thing or another. But the wicked dread getting caught. And what the wicked dread will overtake them. Because, as you've heard it said, the arc of the moral universe, right, bends toward righteousness, right? So when you act in a wicked manner, you're acting against the way the universe was made. The universe, God made the universe to bless and be a blessing to the righteous. Right? If you'd like to dialogue about that, I'm open to the dialogue, but God made the universe to work for the righteous. God didn't make the universe to work against God's own purpose. And God's purpose is righteousness and justice. Another way to say that. Verse 25, "When the storm has swept by, the wicked are gone, but the righteous stand firm forever." Oh, I love that. I love that because you know what? No matter what storm you're in, the day is going to come when it sweeps by, when it's already, when it's gone. Because storms come up, but they don't last always. But when the storm is swept by, the wicked are gone. You're going to look for them. Psalm 37 says you'll look for them, they won't be there. But the righteous stand firm forever. Standing firm. Wow. Okay, now, I'm aware of the time. I'm going to hasten on to one of my favorite Proverbs, which is Proverb 11:1. Proverbs 11:1 says, "The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him." The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. I've got to tell you a story about this. Okay, back in Bible times, you'd go to the market, right? You go to the market, and the one thing you should always bring with you to the market, you need a bag to bring home the stuff you're going to buy, but you need to bring your money, But you also need to bring a set of weights, right? So you want to have your 1 ounce or shekel, you want your 1 shekel weight, your 10 shekel weight, because if you don't know the guy that you're dealing with there at the market, right, you want to put your shekel in the scale while he puts his shekel in the scale, and you weigh it, and you see, is your shekel the same as my shekel, right? Now, okay, the first time you go in, you may do that, and that's cool the first time. But, if you keep doing business with the same guy over and over again, and you keep, pulling out your shekel weight to be sure that he's not cheating you and all that kind of stuff, that kind of speaks of mistrust. And so after time, it's expected that in the marketplace, you do your business with the same people over time. It's expected that, by and large, you're going to develop trust with each other. Now, what if, in the process of developing that trust, some wise guy is going to, I'm not saying, maybe the vendor, maybe the buyer, either way, whatever goes on. What if somebody introduces about have to be the vendor on this one, wouldn't it? What if the vendor comes out with a little bit lighter shekel? Or which way, maybe a little heavier, a little lighter shekel, right? And so you're not getting as much grain that you think you're getting for a shekel. Well, the Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. I want to tell you a story about the Quakers in Pennsylvania back in the early 1700s, like the late 1600s, early 1700s. The Quakers in Philadelphia were reasonably successful business people, and they had stores and all sorts of things. And the Quakers would give, if you came in, you're dressed like a Quaker, you probably were seen by them at the Quaker service earlier in the week, whatever. Well, the Quakers would give the Quakers one price on something, and that was cool. But at some point in the Quaker meeting, it became a thing that the Quakers said, you know what, we're Christians, and the Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him, and we should treat one another, we should treat everyone the same, is what the Quakers said. We should treat everybody the same who comes into our store. And that means we should have the same price for everybody. Because look, up until then, if you come into to Philadelphia and you go into one of these Quaker stores, you're not dressed like a Quaker, you're from out of town, whatever, whatnot, you've got to barter. You have to haggle and negotiate back and forth to get the price of every little thing you're going to buy. You want the stapler? Well, we got to haggle over the price on the stapler. You want, a pair of glasses? Well, we got to haggle over the price of the pair of glasses. So everything you buy, you had to haggle over with the owner of the store, who might have had other things to be doing, but since it's his store and his merchandise, he wants to be sure he gets the best price. So he haggles with each and every customer over each and every item in the store. But one day, those Quakers said, you know what, it's one price. We're going to have one price. Everybody pays the same price in the store. Well, okay, you know what happened? Then the owner of the store doesn't have to be there whenever the store is open. The owner of the store can set the price on the thing and have a clerk come in, and the clerk then just collects that money for whatever the product is. Ba-boom, ba-bing. Everybody pays the same. Watch what happens. Commerce grows. Because suddenly it's cheaper, it's easier to do business when everybody's paying the one one same price. So, watch this. Imagine you go to Walmart. Imagine you go to Walmart today, and there was no Quakers. There was no Christianity, right? Everybody is back to bartering for each and everything. And you're standing behind somebody at Walmart who has a basket full of stuff, and they're ahead of you in line. And by the way, there's only one line because the owner of Walmart has to come out now and haggle with you over each and every hairbrush, each and every little, ink pen, whatever it is. I'll let you have it for a quarter. Well, I don't know, I'll give you 19 cents for it. Well, I don't know, I'll take 20. Okay. So imagine how long it would take to do business. Imagine how slowly an economy would grow under those conditions. Somebody said, and I'm wanting to say that it was Warren Buffett, but somebody said that trust is the most important natural resource in an economy. Now, okay. I'm on the airplane, sitting on the airplane, going where I'm going. Sitting back, relaxing, look over the other person, how much did you pay for your ticket on this airline? Where are you going? You're going to the same place I'm going. Oh, how much do you pay for the ticket? That person paid $50 less than I paid. What's up with that? Ask this person over there. They paid $100 less than I paid. What's going on? Well, right, the airline industry, no two people are paying the same price for the ticket because you buy the ticket at a different time, ba-boom, ba-bing, one thing or another. The computers allow the airline to charge everybody else, everybody on the plane practically, is paying a different price for the ticket. Now watch this. We've entered into the age of big data. Now there's computers that know how much you've paid for stuff and how often you buy and so on and so forth, all this kind of business. And so I'm afraid we are moving away from everybody pays one price, according to basically rooted in Proverbs 11:1, to now, once again, everybody is going to be bartering for their price because they've got such and such a history in big data of their purchases. All that to say, the economy of America was able to blossom as a consumer economy because of one group of people, the Quakers, taking one proverb and applying it to their business. Okay, now watch, we're getting late here. Chapter 11, verse 2, when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. Now that proverb is certainly oriented toward that teachable spirit. We need to maintain a teachable spirit in able to grow in wisdom. It's tough. Back when I was 23, I knew everything there was to know, right? And now that I'm 63, it turns out I hardly know anything anymore. So you got to have a humble spirit in order to learn anything. You got to have that teachable spirit. Lord, help us all keep a teachable spirit. Chapter 11, verse 13, another of my favorite proverbs, a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. Now, this is one of many proverbs that we're going to see that have to do with the mouth and the lips and blab, right? So this is a proverb of discretion, and it's basically saying that a trustworthy person maintains discretion. A trustworthy person is someone who is able to maintain a confidence. When someone puts their confidence in you and shares something that's not meant to be on the front page of the newspaper, right? Not meant to be on, hear me, not meant to be on social media, right? A trustworthy person is going to honor that confidence. That's all it says. A gossip betrays a confidence. So you tell someone with the understanding they're going to hold it in confidence, and they what? Turn around and blab it. Well, enough of that. Verse 14, for lack of guidance a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. Many advisors. And although this is oriented toward the nation, it holds true for individuals as well. When you're about to make an important decision, in the multitude of advisors, in the multitude of counsel, there is safety, right? Verse 25, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. I like that. A generous person will prosper. We tend to think that a generous person, someone who gives away resources, that will be their ruin. But there's a difference. Generosity is targeted. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. I'm glad God made the universe that way. And then finally, verse 30. And verse 30, very, very important for us. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and the one who is wise saves lives. Or as the King James Version says, the one who is wise saves souls. Now, this is one of four appearances of the phrase tree of life in the book of Proverbs. Tree of life is mentioned 10 times in the Bible. It's mentioned 3 times in the book of Genesis, right? It's mentioned 3 times where it's in the Garden of Eden. It's mentioned 3 times in the book of Revelation as a feature of the New Jerusalem that comes down out of heaven from God, adorned like a bride for her husband, right? So 3 at the beginning of the Bible, tree of life, 3 at the end of the Bible, tree of life, and then 4 times in the book of Proverbs is mentioned the tree of life. It's interesting that 10 is a number of completion, 3 is a number of divinity, right? That God created and God will redeem with, the New Jerusalem. So 3 and 3. And then right in the middle is the number 4, which is the number of the created order. And we find 4 mentions of the tree of life in the book of Proverbs, which is a book that's written for our benefit so we might prosper and thrive in the created order. Now, interesting thing, this image of trees, and especially of the tree of life, that trees have a public face and an unseen face, right? Trees have something, they have a trunk and branches and leaves, and we see that, but they also have roots, which are unseen. And it's the roots that provide stability. It's the roots that provide the sustenance for the plant. And as human beings, we have a seen side and an unseen side. You can't see someone's soul or their spirit, but that's the part that allows them to stand. That's the part that gets them through. Trees are characterized by longevity, right? And trees are characterized by their utility. Trees are useful, either useful in terms of fruit or useful in terms of lumber. And may all of our lives be useful in terms of the fruit or in terms of what we're able to do. Trees provide shade, which is hospitality to those who are passing by. And it's interesting to me that trees can be wild, or trees can be domesticated. So very interesting, this image of the tree of life. I would like to make a recommendation, and that's the filmmaker Terrence Malick, probably about 8 or 9 years ago now, made a film entitled The Tree of Life. And it's a fantastic movie. It's 3 hours and something long, and it's very, very deep movie. It's a thinker, right? But it's a setup between 2 different ways of living, as Terrence Malick describes them, either the way of nature or the way of grace. The way of nature is to, my human nature, my sinful nature would be to put myself first, to look out for number 1. But the way of grace is the way of understanding that God is at work in things, and God often works in an unseen fashion, and that blessings may come to us not perhaps all at once or not when we're necessarily thinking of them, but blessings come to us unscheduled. Blessings may creep up on us. Blessings may make themselves known to us in a variety of different ways. If you get a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. Don't expect a movie with car chases and all that kind of stuff. This is a movie that moves along at its own particular pace, which is very slow, but it's it's covering millions of years, right? So it's a very interesting movie. Well, next time we're going to continue in our study of the book of Proverbs. This is a news you can use, right? And we're going to continue with chapters 12 and 13 in Proverbs. I encourage you that if you'd like to participate in the phone call, that on Wednesdays at 12 noon we have that telephone session. So I encourage you to participate in that. Until next time, this is Ken Jobst with the Generations Bible Study. You're in my prayers. I hope you're staying healthy and hope to see you again next week. God bless you. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.